Hello, it's me, and I'm going to do a little bit of a rehash here. I was taking a look at this 3x4x5, and now that it's mass-produced, I thought I'd revisit it again. Now, bear something in mind. When I did my first 3x4x5 tutorial, this was at a point where this was kind of more of a novelty item. Not a lot of people had it, and it was more of a demonstration as much as a actual tutorial. But as I was looking at it, I found that it was maybe a little bit hard to follow. It was in more parts than it probably needed to be. And since this is more mass-produced, I thought I would revisit it again and make a little less assumptions about things that you might be able to already know. Like I assumed that you knew how to do a 4x4x5. I assumed you knew how to do a 3x3x4. And then I started using certain terminologies that might have been confusing. So now I'm going to do it a little different. I'm going to assume that you know nothing about solving cuboids and just sort of start from the beginning. When you talk about the cuboids, I'm actually differentiating it into three different subspecies of that. The first kind I call the towers. Now here's some examples of towers of that. And of the towers, there's those that have asymmetry between sides. In this case, this is a 4x4x5. In this case, it's a 3x3x4. So with these two, these do not display shape-shifting. If you have an odd here and an even here, or in this case an even here and an odd here, they just turn by 180-degree turns from top to bottom and 90-degree turns from side to side. Bang, 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 bang. So that's these are what I call the asymmetric towers. The symmetric tower is something like this, where you basically have odd and even. You have odd to odd or even to even, and these do display the process of shape-shifting. The other type is what I call the bricks, and that's typified by this 3x4x5. Now a brick is a cuboid, but it actually has different numbered sides on each three dimension. So 3x4x5. Now the reason why I separate this out is because the solve is very different from these kind of cuboids, in that you can have variable shape-shifting. Over here you have shape-shifting pretty much at every turn. Here you only have shape-shifting across the symmetric components of the puzzle. So here's a 3 layer and here's a 5 component. This you can shape-shift, but you can't shape-shift after 90 degrees because you're turning an even into an odd. So this makes the solve and the perspective even more difficult. There's a third species of cuboid that I not mentioned, which I call the cuboid pillars. The pillars are something like this. This is a 2x3x5. So it displays a lot of similar characteristics as the bricks, but I call it a pillar because you have asymmetry on all sides, and it sort of stretches up like that. So it's still a cuboid. So it does display some shape-shifting, as you would expect it to, but not on all sides. And it actually has slightly different characteristics than the other cuboids. Here's another example as we're dealing with 5. This is a 1x2x5, and no shape-shifting with this, of course. So between the cuboid towers, the cuboid bricks, and the cuboid pillars, we're going to now hone our attention onto this guy, the brick. Tom Z's 3x4x5. This is not the mass-produced version. This is his Shapeways version. It has never been a problem for me. It has never popped. It has never broken down. It's a very robust structure of perfect tension and is just as enjoyable from the day that I bought it. From there, so abracadabra. Okay, so we have a scrambled 3x4x5. Step 1, don't panic. You'll get through it. It's all a question of perspective. So the first step to understand is perspective here. So what do I mean by perspective? Well, the way that I'm going to solve this is the way that I'm going to solve this conveniently scrambled 3x3x4. So I'm going to have to define a top and a bottom. Now the top is going to be the one that can make 90-degree turns and still, actually turn. So in other words, it can shapeshift. So these top and these bottom layers can do that. I can't define this as the top, because what happens if I define this side as a top here, I can do a turn here, but then I'm stuck. So if I'm going to solve this like a 3x3x4, I have to be able to make a turn here and then a double turn here. And I can only do that from this perspective over here. So the first thing we're going to do is solve it like a 3x3x4. But we have to do it with extended layers. So first let's define a top and define a bottom. So the reason why I'm going to do like a 3 by 3 by 4 is notice this doesn't turn. The only thing that turns is this. So this is 1 layer, 2 layer, 3 layers. So there's only 3 layers that I have access to turning. If I turn it this way, 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically I can do 4 over here, but I can only do 3 along here. So what's going to be my top and what's going to be my bottom? Well, so in order to solve it like that, I have to have the top layer, just like a 3 by 3 by 4, to do 90-degree turns and still able to turn. Now, when it turns with a right and a left move, notice I can only do 180-degree turns. So I need to be able to do 90-degree turns here and 180-degree turns here. So we just find the area in the puzzle that allows me to do that. So over here, no, I can't do 90-degree turns and then 180-degree turns. So just find the side where you can do that, which would be over here. In my case, the green and yellow, green and yellow. You can also tell because you're only going to have a mixing of 2 colors on what's going to be your top and bottom side, because you can only do 180-degree turns, right? Here, you can have a mixture of all 4 colors. So I can turn here, then 180-degree turn here. So that way, this will behave just like a 3 by 3 by 4. What that also means is that this layer here is encompassing all of these guys. So how are we going to define this layer? In other words, if we're going to say this is 1 layer, what is this over here? Is this a red, green, and white? Or is this a red, yellow, and white? We define these based on the terminal segment. We define it based on this, which means that these 2 segments here are going to be basically the red, green, and white. That's how I'm going to define it. So say over here, this piece here, which moves these 2 as 1, these 2 are sort of rolled into each other, this is going to be an orange and white piece. Even though the red is with that, we don't worry about that now. We're going to worry about that later. So by solving it like a 3 by 3 by 4, we're going to get it back into the cuboid form. Okay, this will be the yellow side, this will be the green side, and I don't have any definitive sides here as of yet that I'll define. I'm gonna get my cross. I'm gonna do just like a 3 by 3 by 4. To get a cross on a 3 by 3 by 4, just to run through that, this is the yellow side, yellow and red. I'm just gonna define that as yellow and red. And I know that what's right across from red is gonna be orange, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the orange one in here. Bang, right over there. Now the one that's supposed to be just to the right of red, I need to use a corner to define that. So I'm going to move a corner in just for the time being and saying just to the right of red is a blue. Alright, is a blue. So I know that the next center right to the right of this is going to be a blue. So find the orange and blue, which is here, move it up, turn, move it down. So that's here, orange and green. So now I've basically got something of a consistent cross. I'm going to do exactly the same thing with this guy here. Okay, so I had to change venue a little bit here. So we're going to go ahead and get the cross the same way that we did with a 3 by 3 by 4. Just remembering that we're going to, although we're going to say that this is 1, 2, and 3, even though we have 5 here, we're going to roll these 2 segments together, this is by itself, and roll these segments, defining it by the end over here. So here's a green and blue. So we're going to put blue here. So what goes right to the right of blue? Well, let's find the green and blue corner and see what it tells us. So green and blue corner is right over here, green and blue. Just to the left of the blue is red. So I know that the red, green, and red is going to come down here. So just like we did with this guy, find the green and red, wherever it may hide. And it is right over, it just happens to be over here where it needs to be. So that's where it needs to be. So over here is going to be the orange, because I know orange is just opposite red. So find the green and orange, which is right over here. So it's just a matter of turning it like so and turning it in. Then we find the next one, which will be the green and white. Green and white is actually over here. So this, believe it or not, is our cross. This is the equivalent to this. Now, even though we're going to define this as the cross, understand that even though these are out, it doesn't matter. We're not worried about these middle segments. We're just worried about the end segments. This is how we're defining our 3 by 3 by 4. So this is actually our cross. So what's the next step from here? Well, when doing a 3 by 3 by 4, after you've done the cross, The way I like to do it is I like to put in these segments over here. So I'm going to solve the middle segments, because if I do that, then this kind of becomes a 3 by 3 by 2 by putting in the middle segments. Just to show how I do that, now that I have the cross, I know what these are supposed to be. Now, cuboid strategy, again, I am not assuming any knowledge of how to solve previous cuboids. So when putting the middle one in for the 3 by 3 by 4, we're basically going to, again, be borrowing it from the top level over here. So I need to put, we'll start off with an orange. To put an orange one here, I've got to borrow it from up here, or I can just sort of move this into place. All right, so that's good. Move on the other side here, I need to put a green in. I'm going to borrow it from the top here. So I'm going to double turn it so that I put it on the bottom, and then I'm going to move it out of the way. Now before I turn it back, I have to make sure, I might as well line this one up to the one that's supposed to be right next to the green that I just put in. So in this case, it's going to be red. So I look at the one that's right next to it. So as long as I have the red up here, I can turn it back. So as you can see, green, red. Now I have to put the blue one in here. So find a blue one at the top. Here it is. So I'm going to double turn. Now by double turning it, I'm keeping these the same. So I just have to look and see that the orange is right next to it. But by turning this here, I'm putting the blue on the bottom, right? Then I'm taking it back. Now before I turn it back, I'm about to bat this orange one out of the way, which I don't want to do. So I'm just going to replace it with another orange one from the top, double turn it, and bring it back. All right, so basically you've got yourself the cross. In this other layer over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing with this, exactly the same thing. So let's line up this over here, and what you can see is that I've got the orange here, come over here, I've got to put the white one in. The white one is going to be borrowed from the top layer over here, so I'm going to, same thing, double turn it so that the white one is here, move it out. Now before I turn it back, what do I have to make sure is right next to the white one? Well, that's going to be as illustrated here, which is the red one. So I have to make sure that I pull a red one from the top here, which I'll say is right here. Double turn, and then move it back. So did you catch that? Now the orange is in, white is in, red is in, and the blue just happens to be in. If it wasn't in, you do it exactly the same way. So that's how you get that over here. Now we work on the corners. So the corners is done the same way. We're going to pull it in from the top over here. So you look over here and we see the orange and green. So I'm looking for an orange and green up here, which is all going to be borrowed from here. So here's an orange and green, but that's not the right one, because the algorithm that I'm going to do in order to move this down here is not only going to bring this down here, it's going to flip it, which means this orange and green is supposed to be up here. It's lined up correctly, so it's not this one. So I'm going to try to find another orange and green, and it's right here. This one is the correct one because it's opposite. It's not supposed to be up here because it's opposite, so it's going to flip down to here. The algorithm to do that, as you're moving from one corner a corner above to a corner below, starting with a 2R, is going to be 2R, U, and it's both of these here, because you're treating all these segments as the same, U, 2R, UI, 2R. And that will effectively bring this down without messing anything else up. Then I'm going to come across here, do the same thing. Find the green and red, find it from up here. Here's a green and red, but it's not the right one. So we keep looking. If you don't find it here, it means it's in this level, so we just move on. Red and blue, find a red and blue, and we don't find it here either. So we move on to the next one, which means that they're down here. Blue and orange, right over here, and this is configured right as well because this can flip. So again, 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R, and there that is over here. And now we have yet to just get these guys, green and red. Here's a green and red, the wrong one. Still no show. Red and blue. This is the correct red and blue, which will flip. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. We got it. Now that doggone green and red, is it here? Yeah, we managed to get it. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. All right, so we've constituted this whole bottom side. Let's translate that to this guy. Now, it's exactly the same thing. You just have to keep in mind we are ignoring these middle areas over here. We're ignoring that. So what I'm going to do is, we can start off here. What I'm looking for is the orange and white. So where's an orange and white? Here's an orange and white. I'm ignoring this. Is this the right one? No, it's not, because if I move it, this is actually going to be poking out at me like this. It's going to be coming this way, which means this orange and white has to be here. What about this orange and white? This is the right orange and white because it's poking out up here, which means if I do the algorithm, it'll slip into here quite nicely. So the same thing, 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. So that's good. Now, again, ignore this red. We're not doing those middles yet. It's over here. So this is where it needs to be. White and red. Well, let's find a white and red. Here's a white and red. But again, this is supposed to be here. If I do that algorithm, it's going to be flipped like this. So let's find another white and red. If I can't find it, move on. Red and blue. Here's a red and blue, and it's the right one because it's poking out at me over here. It's facing the wrong way. So again, moving it here, because this is rolled into here. 2R, U, 2R, UI, and 2R. So this is actually correct. Again, ignore that. White and red. Here's a white and red, but again, obviously this is not the correct one. If I were to do that, it'll be poking out like this. Where's my white and red? Well, we move on. How about blue and orange? Okay, so this is a situation where these two need to be swapped. So if you ever run into a situation like that, just move one up here so that you can move it here. So I'm just going to go 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. That whole purpose was just to move it from here to here. So now I can move it into here. Red and white. Here's my red and white. So I go 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. Perfect. Now this white and blue can take its rightful place, whoops, right over here. So this will flip down to here. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. So we're good. This is actually the completed layer over here. Again, ignoring these guys. That's all going to come in later. So now we do this part over here. Okay, let's shift to this one. Now, here's the trick with this. We have all of these on the right side, so everything up here is where it needs to be in terms of its level. It's all at the right level. We just have to get things in place by putting the corners in place. So here's the steps that I do. The first thing that I do is I put all my corners in. Now before, and you've heard me say this before, I talk about what's called the, quote, sandwich formation. I should probably clarify what the heck I meant by that. What I meant is something like this, where both corners are in place, so they're the same color, and you have a different color, an edge, or a middle rather, I guess that's middle, a middle sandwiched between these two. That's what I mean by that. So my whole goal is to put in all of my corners. To do that, this is in, so we're good with this. Now we have to do a corner swap. So this corner needs to come to here. So the first algorithm, so the next algorithm is to do a corner swapping algorithm. And what you want to do is find one that has corners that are already in place. And we might as well put it where it's supposed to be, which is here. If you don't see any corners in place, just go ahead and do the algorithm I'm about to show you at a random place, and you will find one. Turn it to the left side. Put it to the left, and do the algorithm 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. And then if there's no middles in between here, you turn both of these segments, so the entire thing, the entire puzzle, is turned counterclockwise. And then you finish it up with a 2R, UI, 2R, U, 2R. And look at that. Just like magic, your corners are in place. Just turn them to where they're supposed to be. Once you put the corners in place with that corner swapping algorithm, which will happen if you only have one, put it to the side, everything else is going to be in. You now do a middle swapping algorithm, which swaps these guys, swaps these middles. What you're going to do with that is what this algorithm will do is we'll swap this with this and this with this. So I'll have my completed blue side. To do the middle swapping algorithm, you do 2R, U, 2R, U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. So that's in here, and that was swapped over here. So now we just do it again with these two. Put it to one is at the left, one is in front. And it's 2R, U, 2R, U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. So we have this entire middle segment in. Now with this, it's the same thing, but don't, so the whole key is to not panic just because of the shape shifting. Ignore the shape shifting right now. So I'm going to look for the corners that are already in place. And don't be confused about what's supposed to be a corner. This is red, this is white. So obviously we don't have that, quote, sandwich. We don't have them in place. Nope, not here, not here. What about here? Well, we have orange, orange, and white. We ignore these reds, so this is actually in place. We'll move it over here. So you can see these corners are appropriate. So move that so that it's at the left, and now we're going to do a corner swap. What that's going to do is swap this with this, and all the corners are going to be in place. So let's go ahead and do the algorithm. It's exactly the same thing with this as our R. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. The entire puzzle turns counterclockwise, then 2R, UI, 2R, U, and 2R. And lo and behold, you got it. So you have this corner, here we'll just line it up with the proper place here. So you see the red is here, and that's what I mean by sandwich. You've got red, two reds with a white sandwiched in between, two blues, two oranges. So now all we do is we do middle swapping. Swap this with this. This is, by the way, called the adjacent middle swap. The adjacent middle swap will put this into here and this into here. So hold it to where one is at the left, one is at the right, and the other is in front of you. And you go 2R, U, 2R, U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. And as promised, this is in and this was switched. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch these two to put the white in. 2R, U, 2R, U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. Okay, so that's in, and we've actually got these in over here. Something I didn't go over is what if you have it to where it's not at the side of each other like that, right next to each other? What if it was opposite? Well, if that happens, then you have what's called the opposite middle swap. We went through the algorithm with the adjacent middle swap, putting it to the right and front. Opposite middle swap like this, you go 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, and that'll do that. So let's see what happens if that same thing occurs if you have the middles that need to be swapped opposite. Don't let this fool you. These two are, this is actually not correct. This isn't correct here because this is the orange side and this is the red side. So we actually have to swap these two middles. So this will be an opposite middle swap, which goes by the algorithm, not the adjacent middle swap where it's next to each other. 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, and believe it or not, now that's in. Okay, so basically you have the two layers. The next step when doing the 3x3x4 is we're going to get the top and the bottom. Now if we did this right, we already have the cross at the bottom. So all we have to do is place the corners. So it's going to be the same corner swapping, but there's something to keep in mind. I have something that I didn't have with the 3x3x4 before. I now have a middle layer. Because I have a middle layer, there are certain moves that are going to cause parity. And the corner swap from top to bottom is going to create parity, which means you're going to flip these two. We're going to talk about how to deal with that. So over here, this is orange, red, and green. So let's move this into where the orange, red, and green is supposed to be, right here. This has to move down here. You can see it's properly oriented because these two are going to flip here. And it's the same algorithm, but now we're moving this layer and this layer. So we're bringing things from this layer down to here. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. There it is. This is what I mean by the parity. It flipped these two. But we don't worry about that now because we have more edge swapping or corner swapping to do. And as such, we might just take this parity out. So I'm going to hold it in this position and keep it here so that the next algorithm, which is the same one, we'll take this parity out. So let's see, we need the green, orange, and yellow. So let's find that here. Here's the orange, green, and yellow over here. So this will move down here. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. It took the parity out and put this in. But we're not done. So let's come over here. Blue and orange, right over here. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. It's here. Got our parity, so we still hold it here and bring it here. This will come down here. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. So the bottom layer is done. Now what if this happened? What if I happened to put it in, but I ended up with parity with the last step? Well, for our purposes, don't worry about that yet, because we still have to get this top layer, and some of these top layer algorithms, which are the same as what we did over here, will potentially get this parity out. It's done the same way. Are any corners in? These corners are in our, quote, sandwich. So put this to the left. Well, okay, yeah, so put it to the left. I'm doing it here because I always want to keep my parity in front of me and to the right. And I'll do the corner swap, which will put this to here. But I'm going to be moving from here. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. Now you got to turn clockwise, but not the middles. Just the two layers that you're dealing with. So this will turn clockwise and this will match it down here. So the overall effect is that these two both move like this. So basically you're going to be doing a UI and you're going to be doing a D. And then you go 2R, UI, 2R, U, 2R. Now that swap, that corner swapping over here does not create nor does it fix a parity. But we do have all of our corners in. Good, good, good. Now I just do middle swapping. Let's go ahead and swap these two first, lined up with here. All of my middle swaps are parity creating or parity fixing. So 2R, U, 2R, U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. So that's in, this parity is fixed. Now I just put these two in, 2R, U, 2R, U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. Okay, so we're done. But not quite. We're left with parity. So this is the simplest form of parity right here, in which you have what's called an even number. By even number, I mean you have two that are out. Now it could be these two. If you have higher layers, it could be one here and one here. If you had like a 5 by 5 by 7 or something like that. But in any case, this is an even number parity. To get the even number parity out, we have a particular algorithm for that, and that's where you hold it in front of you like this, and you go where you have the to the right and to the left, which you want to exchange, and you go 2U, 2R, 2F, then split it again with a 2U, then split it above that with a 2U, then finish it up with a 2F, 2R, 2U, and it's solved. We're going to continue that process with this and see what shakes out, top to bottom. Just don't get confused. Everything that's green is a top. I'm sorry, is on the bottom. So right now we've got the red, green, and white. Let's slide this where it's supposed to be, which is here. So this is going to slide down to here. So 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. So that's where it's supposed to be, and it creates parity amongst my middle. Now my whole purpose is when I'm done with the 3 by 3 by 4, I won't have it solved, but I will have it back to the cuboid form. So I'm going to hold it here. Next is this green over here, and this is the white, green, and orange. So let's take it to the white, green, and orange, which is supposed to be here. So this is going to come down to here. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. Fixes that parity, puts this in. So we are cruising. Now this guy. So this is blue and orange and green. So this is going to come here. It'll fit nicely. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. We got it. But we have this one yet here, and we do have parity here. Green, or rather green, red, and blue will fit real nicely right here. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2r. So you can see we're slowly building ourselves back to the cuboid form. This bottom is now all in, and it just turns out that it's all sort of solid here except for these guys. Now there's a reason that you're going to discover why I was defining these segments based on the terminal area and not these guys. So you're going to find that out. Now I do the same thing up here. Find where our corners are in, and you see it's over here. So this is actually going to be our orange side, so I'm going to move this here. Now because our corners are in here, it's put to our left, and we do an adjacent corner swap. So it's going to be 2r u, 2r ui, 2r. The top one turns with a ui, bottom one turns with a d, 2r, ui, 2r, u, 2r. And then move it in. Now in this particular situation, this was pretty easy, as all of these happen to be in, and I've got it back to the cuboid form. Well, let me pose a situation that's more likely to be what you're going to find, something more challenging. So you end up with the last layer looking something like this, after you do the corner swap. So let's line our corners up so all of our corners are in, and let's start swapping centers. So we can go ahead and maybe put this red to here, and it'll swap these two over here. So 2r u, 2r u, 2r 2u, 2r 2u, 2r u, 2r ui, 2r. All right, so that puts that in, but we created parity over here because all the middle switches are parity creating algorithms. So I'm just going to move this here, and I'm going to put this to where this orange is and this white over here. So I'm going to now solve my orange side. And I've got to line it up to where my parity is to get it out. 2r u, 2r u, 2r 2u, 2r 2u, 2r u, 2r ui, 2r. And move it back. So good, good. We got our parity out. Now we just have to do an opposite middle swap. 2r, 2u, 2r, 2u, 2r, 2u. We end up with parity here, but we know how to deal with that. So this is the double parity. By double parity, I mean it's an even number, so you've got 2. When you're doing this, I'm still operating like these are as 1. You don't really have to do that actually at this point. You could just move it over here because we have it in the cuboid form, but let's just finish it up. So I guess you can move our r's and our l's like this. So 2u, 2r, 2f, 2u, 2u, 2f, 2r, 2u, and you did it. So that was step 1, the 4x4x5 portion, and I'm sorry, the 3x3x4 portion, and that gets it back to a cuboid form. Now, no matter what happens with these centers, what happens with these middles, you're always going to have the top part solved and the bottom part solved. So you're always going to have that, which is going to be important. Now, the next step